Lots of people have trouble working out where my dad is from. He's got quite tanned skin, and when he was younger, he used to have very, very dark black curly hair. One time when he was younger, he went on a holiday to France, and he was there for a few weeks. He got like a deep tan, and he came back by boat. He was young, and he sort of fell asleep on the boat. And when he woke up, next to him were some immigration papers for him to fill in. Someone had seen him asleep, this young guy, and I think he had a beard at the time, dark black beard, dark black curly hair, and they thought, this guy probably isn't English. But the truth is, my dad has lived in England all his life. So have his parents. So just because my dad looks one way, doesn't mean that everything about that way is true. He might not look like he had lived all his life in England, but he had lived all his life in England. Now, when people look at Christianity, they can think that it looks like one thing. So people will say Christianity is a Western religion. People might say it's really popular in the West, so in England, Europe, North America. Or maybe you think, because of Christianity came to my country because it was bought from people from the West, from Europe. Missionaries came from there. So it's sort of a thing from the West. Or some people would say, Christianity, it has lots of Western cultural values. So if you were going to become a Christian, you would have to become Western. We might think it's popular in the West. We might think it came to our country from the West. We might think it has lots of Western cultural things to do with it. That's how we might think Christianity looks. But because it looks one way, doesn't mean that that is necessarily true. So thinking Christianity is very popular in the West. Now, you might think that. You walk around many European cities, many European countries, and you will see churches, you'll see crosses. All of those things are representing Christianity. It's affected European culture quite a lot. But now, those things are built into our society, but actually very few people in European countries are Christians. So in the UK, less than half the population are expected to identify as Christian in the most recent census done in 2021. And an even smaller portion of that will actually say they actively follow Jesus. So they might say, I'm Christian, but I don't really believe any of it. That's what most people might say. But those who actually follow it is only a small portion, maybe around 8%. So when we say Christianity is very popular in the West, actually that's not necessarily true. Also, on the other side of it, some of the biggest churches in the world, well, they are actually in Asia. So South Korea, Philippines, I think they have some of the biggest congregations or biggest, highest amount of people in their churches. In Nigeria, there are estimated to be 80 million Christians. The fastest growing areas of Christianity and where it is most popular are outside of Europe and the West. So in that sense, if we're saying Christianity is very popular in the West, it doesn't always make sense. Historically, it has been very popular here. But in terms of numbers, Christianity isn't really a Western religion. Okay, you might think, Christianity maybe now is not a Western religion, but surely it has its origins in Western thought and culture. So if you were to look at lots of pictures of Christian art, if they're talking about the Christian story, lots of the disciples and pictures of Jesus, they look like European people. They're white-skinned, often in art. But Christianity did not originate in Europe. So the religion is founded on the life and the teaching of a man called Jesus, and he was born 2,000 years ago in what was Israel. And Israel was a unique place in terms of geography, so it kind of borders both the east and the west. So if you're a European, you might say that somewhere like Israel feels very eastern. And then if you're Asian, you might say that it feels very western. It's kind of right in the middle of Europe and Asia, and also like just at the top of Africa. It kind of borders all of them. Now, from its position in Israel, it spread very quickly to Western Europe because it was right on the edge of what was the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago. And as a result, it had a huge influence because the Roman Empire had a huge influence on Western culture, but it wasn't its origins. It didn't come from the West, Christianity. And there is lots about Western culture which is not Christian. So we don't want to assume the two are always the same. There are also very early records of Christianity spreading not just into Europe, but east into Asia and south into Africa. So then the question is, okay, if it's not Western, what is it? Well, this is one of the remarkable things about the Christian story. It actually says that it's for all people. So when God spoke to Abraham, who's sort of the grandfather of the Christian faith, when God spoke to this character in the Bible story, he told him that, God is going to be a blessing for all nations, all people. So not just one culture, all cultures. And when Jesus, when he was talking to his followers, he told them, this Christian faith, this story which is about me, that's for all people, and I want to share it with all people. And then the story of the Christian faith and where it's heading, and one of the aims of it is that people from all languages and cultures and people will all be worshipping the God of the Bible. And not just as one culture, but sort of bringing the best of their cultures. And it's amazing, as a Christian, I've visited different countries in the world, and I have been to churches in Japan, in Hong Kong, in West Africa, in East Africa. I've been to churches in Europe. And I can tell you that there's a lot that is the same in their beliefs, but there's something amazing about Christianity that it can just be part of these cultures. So singing and dancing in an African church might be very different to the way that people practice the Christianity with the same beliefs in a European church. Christianity is for all cultures. So then when we think about this question, maybe we have to think, actually, maybe Christianity, rather than is a Western religion, is a global religion. Because it's the story of one God and his relationship with the whole world. So this is just a little introduction. It's now time for you guys to have a bit of time discussing.